What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here. This is Adorama Rewind, and once again, it's a pretty short, concise week. I'm kind of digging them in these little bites, as opposed to these like 40-minute epics I used to do. But that's kind of what's going on with the news right now, with the situation we're in. But I wanted to start with something that's kind of like an upswing with this pendulum that we're on. A lot of wedding photographers were affected by this, right? All these venues had to shut down. Weddings got rescheduled for like a year later. A lot of things got canceled left and right. I mean, a wedding is a gathering of people, and we're supposed to be socially distant. Well, things are starting to ease up, and I'm seeing reports all over the place of more regulations on things, but at least they're allowing some weddings to happen and stuff like that. Of course, I hope everybody can be safe during any type of gathering that's going on, but Ohio is allowing up to 300 guests as of June 1st. So this is pretty good if you're a wedding photographer, right? Of course, there's some regulations and stipulations, the 6 feet of distance, no shock there. All employees must wear face coverings, no shock there. All guests are recommended to wear face coverings. So that's where it's kind of interesting to me. Are you going to be shooting receptions with people in their face covered? Are you a wedding photographer out there? How has this affected you? Is this something you're looking forward to? Maybe smaller weddings, but you're gonna have to be more conscious of where you are, always having a face covering on. Of course, any work is better than no work. And I don't know how you would handle doing so many portraits of groups with the mask on and still show who is who in the family. Is it harder to work like that, right? Will you be able to spot Uncle Leo or whoever when they tell you to point, they point them out, like, make sure you get pictures of him or whatever. Let me know how it's affecting you, but there's a lot of creative solutions happening right now. I'm seeing a lot of studios allowed to open up again. Soon, more and more rollout depending on where you're at. Here in New York, we're still pretty tight, locked down a bit, but somewhere in the Midwest, you might be able to operate a photo studio with just 3 people on set, keeping distant, using longer lenses, everyone wearing face coverings, except maybe your model. Outside shoots, I mean, even our own Vanessa Joy has found a way to shoot prom photos for people who had their proms canceled, but got the dress and want to still feel like they're living that moment. Well, they get dressed up and she'll long lens it and get you some shots to at least remember this time of your life. Yes, it's unprecedented times, but it's still a time in people's lives. So let me know down below if you guys have found any creative solutions to keep working as creatives, not just photographers. I'm talking DJs, video people, audio people. Let me know down below how you're negotiating these times we're in and what you're doing to keep yourself going forward. I know it's dire, but let's try to keep it positive in those comments and maybe even offer suggestions to people that are expressing concerns for what's going on right now. All right, let's talk about this one. It's kind of weird. It's also kind of nice to see Getty doing something like this. So ex-McDonald's worker, gets her images taken down by Getty. So they were selling this image of her working at McDonald's, and the problem with that was every time the media ran a story about McDonald's and it was like negative, like this one story about this pregnant employee who couldn't get McDonald's to get her a proper fitting uniform. They used this stock image, and people who just glanced at the article would just assume that she was the girl they were talking about. And she was like, what is going on? Getty was like, we're not doing anything illegal, and you're gonna have to take it up with the third party, whoever bought the images, but they paid $600 for those images, so good luck with that. But out of good faith, Getty was like, you know what, we just won't sell this image anymore. We don't have to take it down, but we're going to. And I think that's pretty noble of them. They can't really fix what already happened, the selling of the photo, and I'm sure that they didn't really look at this as an issue until it was brought up by the girl in the photo. But yeah, this is kind of what we're living in, stock images and a lot of really quick media, and not all of them are credible, right? They're just some random website that paid the $600, slaps it on there and regurgitates some text from another article and whatever else happens. But this is, this is kind of where we are. And I think it's good that Getty realizes that they don't have to sell every single image, even if they are in the legal right, but morally, maybe it's not that great to sell that image. I don't know how it affects the actual photographer themselves who shot it, if they were getting pieces of that money, but I think it's fair that I think it's fair. Let me know down below if you agree with this, or you think Getty should have just left it up there and business is business. I'm kind of curious about that. All right, Capture 120 has had some updates to it. First, we're getting a Nikon version of it. So just like Sony, Fuji, now Nikon has a version that's free for Nikon users. It's limited. You don't get all the tools just like every other version that's free for a certain brand camera, but it is available now. So if you have a Nikon, you want to try out Capture One, there's a Nikon version for you. But with the new features that they put out are pretty cool. So what's basically going on, is the adjustment brushes. So before, when you used like healing or cloning, you only could sample one area, like one area per layer. Now you can use unlimited healing and cloning in each layer, because before what you would have is only 15 layers to work with, and that was really annoying. So if you want to do more than just 15 sample selections to clone or heal when you're retouching inside Capture One, which Capture One never really was a retouching software. It was more for color grading, raw file interpretation, tethering, things like that. And I'm a big fan of Capture One. But if there's something that you had to retouch for someone really quick, you'd have to work in Capture One, then export it over to Photoshop, and then do the rest of your retouch there. Another option that they have now is you can toggle before and after just by pressing the Y button on your keyboard. You can see where your edit started, where you're going with it. That way you can kind of see how far you're taking it. Maybe this will help people from stop making plastic skin people in their images, I'm just saying. And also the other thing is Adobe Lightroom catalog importer. So you can actually take what you have in Lightroom, all the catalogs that you organize, and just import them right into Capture One, making it easier for Adobe people to switch over. And like I said, Nikon has their own version now as well. So this is pretty cool. I love Capture One. I really like how they keep on updating it and making it more and more user-friendly. They definitely listen to the user feedback heavily, and that's kind of where Capture 120 came from. If you look at it, they basically were talking to all the people that were using Lightroom and liked it for certain reasons, and why Capture One wasn't a language they were understanding. And they're like, all right, no problem. And they started integrating more of a Lightroom type interface while still having the great capability that Capture One has. It just does one of the best interpretations of a raw file I've seen out there. You know, write me down below if you are a Capture One person or a Lightroom person and why you choose one or the other. I'm just curious to see everyone's point of view on this. You know, every tool isn't for everyone, and everyone has their style or what things work for them really well, or just how they work, if they like the way things work. So let me know why you stick with one or the other. Just kind of curious. I think it's important that we have these discussions. And speaking of updates, the SD memory card has got a theoretical update coming. They're calling it new SD Express 8.0, where we're going to get 4 gigabytes per second speed. 4 gigs. Let me show you. So this is kind of neat right now. If you see down here in the lower right, 3,938 megabytes per second, which is kind of what we need for all this 8K, 4K, 61 megapixel sensors, and all sorts of high res, more bit depth, right? We had 8-bit video, we got 10-bit video, and it's going more and more every time the generations of cameras come out, and they're coming out faster and faster, it seems, right? Like the Canon R5 that's listing 8K in its specs, the 61 megapixel Sony sensor, and the A7R IV. There's so much stuff coming out that's raising the size of the file, the depth of the pixel, the depth of the images, the more dynamic range. All this stuff is ones and zeros that eats up memory, and that means your camera has to record it and pump it out into a memory card. And we were looking at CF Express as being the next memory, and as it becomes more available and more cameras adopt it and more brands produce it, it becomes more and more accessible because prices go down, right? Well, SD memory has been around the longest probably, and it's so widely used in almost every camera brand across the board. The problem is could it hold up for the future? Would it be able to handle 8K video, 20 frames per second at 60 megapixels? Could it handle that? Well, now the cards look like theoretically they're not going to be the bottleneck, and the processors and the buffers in the camera are going to be. So when we see the cameras get faster, the memory card is no longer going to be an issue as far as, well, the camera can handle it, but we don't have a memory card that can handle it, at least not SD, which is kind of cool. I'm wondering though, if because the form factor is the same, because it is an SD card and go into cameras, will older cameras have firmware updates allowing them to use memory that's this large and this fast? I mean, there's always some sort of caveat to when they make memory in the same physical form, that higher capacity and faster megabytes per second. We definitely need this, right? So when the cards don't become the bottleneck, there basically is no buffer. CF Express has shown that a lot of people are just plugging those cards right in, and now the cameras basically have no buffer. They're just firing away. It's pretty amazing. I do like CF Express though. I'm just going to go on record as saying that. I know it's pricey and all that stuff, but it's a really robust card. I don't feel like it's going to crack or anything physically. And so far, every camera that's used it, I feel really takes advantage of it. But this is kind of interesting. I don't know when this will be available though. It's just they're saying they're able to do it. When we start seeing it actually in the marketplace, how readily available it will be, who can manufacture it, how much will it cost, And can cameras even accept it, or are we gonna have to wait for a newer generation to be able to implement these cards in those cameras? So it's all stuff to think about. Everyone just sees these headlines and go, oh, it's amazing, but there's always a trade-off in this game one way or another. So keep that in mind. Let's dial it back to some older technology, E6 film processing, which is basically slide film. What CineStill has created kind of a new process for, which is kind of cool. It's kind of broken down where it has a 3-bath kit. So you're looking at a 2-in-1 color and reversal solution. You have a 3-in-1 Blix, bleach or fix, and you're pretty much off to the races. What's cool about though is this right here. You can actually tone the film based on how you develop it. So you could steer it towards tungsten, where you see your neutral light turns into a bluer hue, daylight chrome, which is basically on point as far as your white balance goes, or dynamic chrome, which is basically the other side of the spectrum where it gets warmer. I think it's pretty cool. Check out the CineStill website if you want to know more about it. E6 is one of the most beautiful processes ever. I was a big fan of it in the film days. Every magazine would always ask you to shoot slides, not negatives, and I always got them slides. And then for my own personal work, I would actually shoot cross-process slides. So E6 slide film processed in C41, which was color negative film, and would give me a blue colored negative. And then you could kind of color grade it in the darkroom. However, actually, yeah, this photo right here is a cross-processed E6 film, which was pretty fun. Check it out. If you are someone that's into analog and you're shooting a bunch of chrome, you might want to check this out. I think being able to do this process in home is kind of cool. I remember it was like a huge undertaking back in the day when I had to do it myself, and the machines you needed. Well, now it seems pretty easy, and they're simplifying it, and it seems also pretty affordable as well. So check that out. Read up on it, see if it's for you, and maybe if you're just hanging out, go take a walk around and shoot some chromes and see if you can process it yourself. I think being able to control the balance, so to speak, in the processing is pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. It seems like it's brand new. I mean, they're pretty much saying it's never been done before. I'd probably lose my mind over the options, though. Be like, I shot it this way, but I could do this in the processing. It's kind of like, and there's no undo button. There's no step backwards. There's no history. Once you set it that way, that's the film you're going to deal with, unless you scan it and then change the balance later. All right, I just wanted to also remind you guys that during the week, I'm going live with a guest on Adorama's Facebook page. So if you want to check it out, I've had some great guests. It's always 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday format. I mean, we've got Joe McNally, Ab Cisse, who's a lighting magician, David Bergman, Renan Ozturk, Pi Jerza. We had Prince McClinton from Art of Visuals. Not to mention Mark Mann, which is one of it was such a good conversation. I highly recommend it. Also, Robert Kelly, one of my favorite comedians ever, talks about what it's like to have to self-produce content now. Fernando Martinez, senior producer at Adorama TV, to give you a little look behind the scenes of what it takes to do what we do here at Adorama. It just goes on and on. We banged out so many of these because we're basically doing them every day. And I have some great guests coming on this week. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday, I don't know when you're watching this, but it will be Rick Salmon, who has 41 photo books to his name. Just saying. Wednesday, Keith Alexander, if you guys want to come hang out and talk some audio. And Thursday, Arlene Evans, who is like one of the biggest names in education trade shows. She runs WPI, Photo Plus, Emerald Expositions. She's definitely created a world for educators and guys like me to go speak and do trade shows. So I think that one is definitely something you should all check out if you're in the photo world at all. All right, I'm going to do the shout out of the week, and this is going to go to a guy who's been super active in all the live streams and in chats, has been a real member of the photo community. I see him always helping people out in the comments, always replying to people, and he's sharing work all the time, and he's definitely out there hustling. This one goes out to Tyler Hart. What's going on, man? I just wanted to give you a quick shout. So give him a follow. Go check out what he's doing. Does a lot of school sports and things like that. So if you are also of that realm, it's kind of good to stay up on other people that are in that space shooting it as well. So just go hit up his Instagram, drop a follow, and say what's up to him. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And I'll be doing more shout outs of the week every time we do Rewind. I'm trying not to forget it. I apologize that 1 week I forgot it. Question of the week. I'm going to go back to our first story. What have been your creative solutions to keep working through this? Have you gotten longer lenses to keep your distance? Have you been one of those guys that just started using a drone to shoot a model and somehow it's special because it was shot with a drone? Or are you trying to find other ways to reschedule your life to get back to work later? I know we all hunkered down, we worked on our websites, we worked on our social and stuff, but what have you done to kind of start moving forward now? Restrictions are easing up all over a little bit at a time. Some places just don't lock down. I do understand that. I'm trying to be sensitive to that as well. New York, super locked down still. I mean, it's just crazy. But, you know, there's things out there you can do to get creative and then get creative with how you can move forward getting back to work. So let me know down below what you've been doing. I'm sure I'm going to hear a lot of people doing, I do FaceTime portraits and all that stuff, but that's cool. As long as you're staying active and you're not getting stuck in your skull and going into a very dark place, I think it's important to keep each other in mental check right now. So write me a comment down below, write a comment to each other down below, reply to each other. This is a community. Don't forget, guys, to hit like, share this video around. Of course, write a comment. I've said like 1,000 times this way. You guys can follow me on all social media, Last X Witness, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.